Hi, I'm Peter Capaldi. I play the Doctor, and you're watching EMS Productions.
Hello everybody, and welcome along to today's video where I've finally got round to managing to do a review for the pilot. So here it is. Let's get straight into all my thoughts on the pilot. So it's been a very long wait for a full series to start again. Only 4 months since Christmas, but it's certainly been a long time since Hellbent, whatever you may think of that episode. So it was certainly very nice to have Doctor Who back last Saturday. Apologies, this review has taken a little bit longer to get together than planned. I've just been so busy this week I haven't had a chance. So the pilot, it very much seems to be set kind of separately from everything we've seen previously. It seems to be a few years on, from the Doctor's point of view, 50 or 70 years on, having been at this university for all that long period of time. So certainly from the Doctor's point of view, it's a long time since the return of Dr. Mysterio, which kind of then removes it a bit from the previous episodes in the series, despite the Clara reference. But keeps it fairly separate from what we've had previously, and kind of as Stephen Moffat has been talking about all the way, having a reboot, a proper fresh start for the series, which I think was needed and really did feel like that in the episode. When I was watching it for that first time, as you'll have seen a bit from my live reaction, it really just felt fresh, it felt new, it felt different. It was quite hard to put my finger on exactly what it was, but it just had a different feel to anything we'd seen previously. Whereas in the Christmas special, Return of Dr. Mysterio, it still kind of felt a bit Series 9, a bit of that sort of era, the Clara era as it were of it. Even without Clara, it still just felt a little bit like that. Whereas when I've hit Series 10, it really just feels new. I think a lot of it probably is down to Bill as the companion, having that new companion there, just giving us a new sort of way into the show, a new viewpoint, a new person to sort of look through their eyes at. And certainly I would say that Bill probably was the highlight of the episode. Really sort of fantastic. I think if Pearl Mac is showing that she is a fantastic actress, despite not having really anything major that she's done in the past, very much an unknown sort of actress going into the series and everything, so it's all, obviously there's naturally a little bit of trepidation, but I think she definitely proved any critics she had wrong in the pilot. Really, she kind of led it was all obviously focused about her, on her character of Bill, but she very much sort of took that on and really led the episode, I felt. And so in terms of Bill as a character, I find she's a really good character. She's quite likeable. She feels a lot more kind of relatable, I think, than maybe Clara did. As much as I like Clara as a companion, she probably is my favourite companion from New Who. Controversial comment there. She still wasn't necessarily the most relatable character because she was a little bit too perfect in some scenarios and some things, whereas it does just feel like Bill is a bit more of a normal person from Earth. Just a normal woman who's just serving chips in university, doing nothing special, just a very normal, standard life. Going a little bit back to obviously Rose Tyler from Series 1 and 2, a little bit harking back to that, but still a little bit different. And I think it was a really clever way that Stephen chose to introduce her as a character by sort of having her already building up a relationship with the Doctor, just her not really realising who the Doctor is and quite what he's all about. It was sort of along when he becomes the sort of teacher for Bill, because he can see that she wants to learn and she's interested that she's actually going to the Doctor's lectures, which are just awesome, frankly. It was a nice, just a different way of doing it by having her sort of introduced and getting to, so she actually knows the Doctor really well before she actually finds out really who he is and what's going on with all this time travel and stuff. And so I thought that was just quite a unique sort of way of doing it. Although we have previously had sort of the companion appearing before they really become the companion, it was sort of a new take on it, I felt, in this episode, doing it that way, and then obviously building up to the big reveal of who the Doctor really is, what's quite going on. She was kind of starting to pick up a little bit that the Doctor isn't quite who he seems, just the normal, slightly odd lecture person, who sort of university lecturer, rather than an actual alien, which it turns out, of course. And it just sort of, as they gradually built that up, well, we had the stuff with Heather as well, which kind of led the two together, and still trying to hide it and everything, and then suddenly we end up inside the TARDIS and she actually realises what is going on. And I must admit that TARDIS scene was probably one of my favourite of the episode. It just felt so right to have the 12th Doctor and Peter finally getting to sort of introduce a new companion to the TARDIS, getting to read off sort of do the time, relative dimension and space. It's the TARDIS. Just all those lines, they're perfect, just such brilliant moments that the 12th Doctor hasn't had the opportunity to do yet, and Peter just absolutely nailed those lines. And although I know it seemed to be a bit irritating to some people apparently, but I really liked that Bill just asked different questions. And I saw Stephen's interview with it about sort of that scene and everything, and the stuff he's saying about how he tried to write it as a normal person would actually ask questions about it. Normal people wouldn't automatically assume that it's a time machine or that it's a spaceship that's bigger than the inside. They'd assume that it's a knock-through or these kind of things. So it was just, when you sort of actually hear Stephen saying that, you think, oh yeah, that's actually quite true, that a normal person wouldn't automatically assume it's a spaceship that's bigger on the inside, just because you're not able to comprehend that as an idea. Whereas sort of a magical door you go through to a bigger room that's sort of just a bit hidden there is a lot more kind of conceivable as an idea. And again, the way the TARDIS looks, you said it looks like a kitchen, which, if you think about it, spaceships are obviously generally thought as of sort of massive ships with a flight deck and all this kind of thing, stuff you see on Star Trek or anything, or classic Who spaceships that are very much a sort of stereotypical spaceships. And that would clearly be the idea that's drilled into Bill's head as to what a spaceship is. So then, when you're suddenly chucked inside this TARDIS, you wouldn't, because it looks so different to anything else, you wouldn't automatically assume, again, that it's a spaceship, that it's bigger on the inside, anything like this. So I think those lines were very sort of, very realistic of what a normal person would say. Maybe they'd be a bit more scared than she was, but it did seem like a really good idea from Stephen to really just write her as a real human being and what people really would say. And so alongside that, of course, the sort of relationship between the 12th Doctor and Bill was obviously the driving force of this episode. It was very much more of a character-focused episode, focusing on building up the relationship of these two characters and sort of introducing Bill to the show rather than so much about the plot, which left a little bit to be desired, shall we say. I'll bring in a little bit more on that a bit later, but it just, as I've said, it was a really good introduction for Bill initially, and then how she sort of played off the 12th Doctor. I think they've got some really great chemistry. We've seen that straight away. They're really just bouncing off each other well. So some of the questions that Bill's got for the Doctor and the way he reacts to it all, it was just a little bit of comic timing in there as well, and everything that worked out. I really love the scene where Bill finally does realise that it's bigger on the inside, and it's just like a little high five with Nardole that she's finally managed to get it. I really had a bit of a chuckle at that. It was just a brilliant sort of moment. And there was just some really brilliant lines that Peter got as well in the episode, sort of when she walks inside the blue box of how is that going to sort of protect us? Well, that's a very extremely long and very involved answer. Just sort of brilliant one-liners that Moffat writes. Some people are annoyed by it, but I actually love them. And Peter just sort of portrayed fantastically and really took those lines on. And then the sort of as they're taking around these different places, down to Australia, down to the end of the universe somewhere, and then onto the Dalek ship or whatever it was, just sort of their interactions I just thought were fantastic and really bode well for the rest of the series, because they just really had that on-screen chemistry which you can't really sort of force. It's just there or it isn't, and it definitely was in this occasion. And well, the other main character, of course, to talk about is a certain Nardole, played by Matt Lucas. I know there was a lot of negativity when he was first announced back in last summer, I don't know, that it was kind of like, what's the point, why is he being chucked in like this? It just felt a bit of an add-on and unnecessary. And I think to some degree he's proved that wrong. He is clearly meant to be a bit of comic relief as a character. He is there for your comedy one-liners and all this kind of thing, just to liven it up, lighten the mood a little bit at times. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that from a personal point of view. I mean, obviously, I don't think it was of any detriment to the plot in that episode. Clearly, as I've seen some people say, Nardole wasn't necessary in this episode. Clearly, the script had already been written before Nardole was introduced as a character, and before he said, oh yeah, can I come back? And Stephen said, sure. Clearly this script had always been written because he's just been tacked on. If you took him out of this episode, nothing different would have happened. Nothing at all. So he was in this episode just there for the comic lines and just a bit of added fun and all this kind of thing, which obviously is a little bit of a drawback. But as a character, I quite like him. He's just a bit of fun. He's a bit of an odd one. For some reason, he seems to be a bit of a robot as well. It looks like that's how it's been put together. Seeing the scene right at the very beginning of the episode with a bolt falling out and everything. That's presumably how the Doctor's put him together, some sort of robotics inside or something like that. But it's just a few great jokes sort of about, shall I get rid of the human or something? Oh, there's a human in here. Shall we get rid of the human? And just lots of funny little lines that he had, which I thought worked really well. I have to say, it did feel very much like a stereotypical Matt Lucas character. If you ever watched Little Britain, there were sort of moments and lines where you very much felt that's a lot similar. He sort of, obviously all actors have very sort of have certain styles, but it's sort of, I feel like it's very apparent with Matt Lucas. It's a lot of it, there's just lots of different sort of ticks and looks and sort of sounds he makes and everything that are just very similar across all those different characters, and I very much picked up on that. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, it's just something that I observed in the episode. Now, looking at the actual sort of plot of the story itself, I guess you would say, which was a little bit thin on the ground, this idea of some sort of puddle that absorbed Heather, this human, to become the passenger to transport this sort of puzzle around or to transport this thing around and then connect up with Bill and everything and try and take her to join her in the stars and all this kind of thing. It was all a little bit all over the place, a little bit not that massively developed, and clearly was meant to just be a side story to the Doctor and Bill meeting each other for the first time, I think it's fair to say. And that's not a huge detriment to the episode, I don't think. That's not really what it was meant to be about. It wasn't meant to be focused on the plot, a big, complicated, mega great plot. It was all about the Doctor and Bill. And there was a bit of sort of unnecessary cameos. The Daleks didn't need to be in this episode, let's be quite honest. The Movellans, it was a nice little cameo, but again, it's just a cameo. It's a bit unnecessary. It was fun having the Doctor sort of taking Bill around a few different places, the little sort of trick with taking her to Australia rather than travelling in time, and then going to the end of the universe, and then ending up on this Dalek ship. So it was nice to be sort of back and forth around time, a little chase around time almost, as it were, for a time and space for a little bit, and then ending up on this Dalek ship, which I'll get onto now. Now that scene sort of at the end where we end up on this Dalek ship, it's interesting because initially when I watched that I thought, oh, it's just a Dalek ship from in the past with the Dalek Movellan War or something like that. But reading another reviewer and sort of watching the episode back again, something that I haven't picked up on again is actually we're involved in the Time War, Gallifrey, at the fall of Gallifrey at the end of the Time War, because the Doctor talks about going into the deadliest fire in the universe, which is the fall of the Gallifrey and the whole sort of fire around that, and the line about the Doctor has been detected, but it didn't say the 12th Doctor has been detected, so it was, and then he had to scan the sonic screwdriver to see it was the 12th Doctor, so it was clearly set before the 12th Doctor had come into being. And the Doctor said it was in the far past, even though it looks like the future as well. So I just thought that was really interesting when reading that from somebody else who'd done a review of it, that actually this is set on Gallifrey at the end of it, so we're still linking back into the Gallifrey story and narrative of all that, which is just a little bit of continuity, just a nice little sort of nod in there if you pay a little bit of attention, which I hadn't first time, and sort of look out for that, then you do notice that actually if you put piece bits together, they're on Gallifrey. But yes, as I said, it was a bit of a waste of time having Daleks in there. It was clearly just a nice shot to chuck in a trailer and a couple of minutes of brief cameo. Oh look, the Daleks are back kind of thing, because it does seem like they're not actually going to be in an episode this year. That's probably just their appearance for the series, because they're not in the finale and they're not in any episode as far as I know. So that's all we're getting the Daleks, which I'm not fussed about really. I don't think we always really need them too much. And considering we hadn't had them since really the beginning of Series 9, it was just a bit unnecessary to chuck them in here. But they did, and it didn't really add anything. We just basically saw that even being a Dalek shooting Heather could not kill the pilot passenger thing that was in there. So then it sort of led us to this final scene with with Heather and Bill sort of meeting each other, because of course they're all falling in love, or Bill's falling in love with Heather and all this kind of thing. And then obviously she does the stupid thing of joining hands with Heather, so she gets shown this whole universe of where she could go out in the stars with Heather, but why she really shouldn't. And that, I must admit, hats off to Lawrence Goff, who was the director of this episode, for a fantastic little CGI scene that he would be involved in creating there, where we sort of see these random shots around space and planets interspersed with shots of Heather and Bill and everything. That was a real sort of little marvel of shots and direction and everything there. And I think overall this episode was really well directed by Lawrence Goff. It was his first attempt at Doctor Who, so I thought it was a really impressive one. I also liked the shots that he used in the at the beginning in the episode with the Doctor doing the lecture, at the beginning of the episode, where we had those sort of nice shots, like this film sort of frozen screenshots of things and all that little bit. I thought that was really well directed as well, and just overall it sort of had a really nice or interesting feel to it. It didn't feel too bog standard sort of directing that we sometimes get in episodes. It felt like he tried to do something a little bit different, and hats off to him. I thought it really worked in this episode. And so, nearly wrapping this up, I mean, I've gone on for a fair while. Finally, obviously, Bill survives. It's all happy days at the end. Heather's dead, but there you go. There was that lovely and really sad moment where the Doctor goes to wipe Bill's mind, and then he remembers Clara, or at least remembers what happened with Clara, and stops. And that moment where Clara's theme starts playing, it's just sort of heartbreaking in a moment there, certainly for me, as I'm a big fan of Clara, that even now, I thought it was very sort of poignant that even now, even though he can't forget her, remember her even, the Doctor is still defined, the 12th Doctor is still defined by Clara Oswald. He's still being guided and led by her memories, or lack of memory almost, more than anything else. And I think, so no matter what happens with Bill in this series, I know some people will not like me saying this, but Clara is the most important character to the 12th Doctor. There is no doubt, just because even now she's completely gone and forgotten, she's still having an effect on him. So I certainly would hope that means we'll at least get a cameo from her in the Christmas special. That would be quite nice just to see her one more time reappearing. But certainly no, I don't think you can deny now that Clara really is the most important character to this 12th Doctor, particularly because he's going after this series. There's just not enough time for Bill to make such a big of an impact to have that influence on him, I think. And as we're going to see, she's probably going to be leaving at the end of this series as well. But then of course we have the nice little ending scene where the Doctor invites Bill into the TARDIS. He sort of realises, whatever, I don't care what I'm supposed to be doing at the university, let's just go off and have adventures. I was supposed to stop it, but who cares, I'm going to go off and have some fun with Bill. And off they go, flying off to the next adventure. But it is also worth mentioning what is going on with the arc of this series. It seems that the Doctor has ended up at this university, stuck there or there for a purpose for the last 50 to 70 years, something around that. And here's a reason there, which is involved with this magical vault underneath the university. There's something inside it, something important that he's protecting or something like that. And therefore he's got to stay at this university, presumably to protect whatever in that vault. What's in the vault? Please tell me in the comments below. I'm thinking maybe it's Missy, probably not. Maybe it's the Master, it's John Sim, don't know. Is it going to be the Doctor's next incarnation as something as sort of major as that? Is it going to be, spoiler alert, the First Doctor? Who knows? Mondasian Cybermen? I just don't know. But I think that's probably going to be the arc. So we're probably going to see the Doctor sort of popping back to the university every now and then, getting little nods to, oh, there's somebody hanging around the vault, blah, 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 and see where that all goes. But that certainly seems to be the main part of the arc that we've seen for this series so far. I sense Nardole will get involved somehow as well, whether he's part of the Doctor's plan, sort of helping out the Doctor with protecting this vault or whatever it would be, or whether he's suddenly going to turn to sort of the dark side or whatever, as it were. I feel like he's the sort of character that could be kind of manipulated into helping out a Missy or the Master or someone like that. I can just see that sort of thing happening. And then, although he's a bit of a comedy character at the moment, I feel like there's a little bit of a dark side hidden behind Nardole that we could see coming out later in the series. But who knows. And one final thing just to mention about this episode is the fantastic score from Murray Gold. I know I've seen a little bit of criticism of it, but personally I really enjoyed it. It was really different, really new, a completely fresh feel to this sort of the soundtrack after we'd sort of had Series 8 and Series 9 where, although the music was very good, a lot of it was feeling a bit similar. Although, as much as I do love the Series 9 and I wish the soundtrack would come out, some of it was getting a little bit samey, and it was a struggle in The Return of Dr. Mysterio. There was no decent music in The Return of Dr. Mysterio, to be quite honest with you. There was no single track that was really well known from the episode or anything like that. There was just nothing. So it sort of felt like, oh, was that just a dodgy episode from Murray Gold, or is this kind of it? But then suddenly he's come straight out a brand new episode, a brand new series, and gone completely new, completely fresh, different sort of sounds. A lovely new theme for Bill. A little bit more of a sort of cheeky theme, a little bit more of an upbeat theme than Clara's, which is a bit more sort of, it's hard to describe. Not emotional as such, but sort of a slightly more thoughtful, I guess, a bit more deep of a sort of theme than Bill's, which is, yeah, just a bit more sort of happy, jokey kind of theme. At least that's the feel I get from it. And well, there we go. That's just about it from this video. I think I've covered pretty much everything important from the episode. Don't think there's anything that I've missed. Of course, you'll probably say, oh yeah, why don't you talk about this, that and the other, but there you go, that's what comments are for, aren't they? So we can chat about it in the comments. So yes, I mean, overall I would probably give sort of around about a 7.5 to 8 out of 10 if I had to put a number on a rating for this episode. It was a very good series opener. It's not top. I would put The 11th Hour, Impossible Astronaut, Deep Breath, Magician's Apprentice in front of it, among other sort of season openers. So it's only not sort of my top 1 or 2 season openers, but by no means was it a bad season opener. It was a very sort of enjoyable one. A bit of a more simple story compared to the Series 9 opener, certainly, where it was a bit more high stakes involved, massive cliffhanger at the end of it and everything. It was never meant to be that sort of an episode. But overall, as I say, I really enjoyed it. And I think it was a really positive start to Series 10, and I sort of got the general feeling seemed to be a lot of positivity around the show after that episode. It seemed to be a lot more widely enjoyed than maybe little Series 9 was, where it was a lot more divisive. Of course, you've still got a few of the sort of staunch Moffat haters. Maybe there's a couple of you guys in the comments, do let me know. Who just will refuse to like anything written by Stephen Moffat, which is fair enough, that's your opinion, I disagree. But no, it was just nice to see a lot of positivity around the show after that episode, and I think it because we've got such a new companion, a new feel to the show, I think it's really going to entice people a bit more for the rest of the series, and I think it's really promising, and I'm really excited for the rest of this series. And well guys, that's just about it from this video. Do remember to let me know in the comments below what you thought of the episode, just any thoughts you've got at all about what happened, what's going on, anything about the ongoing arc for the series, about this magical vault, just anything you'd like to talk to me about, let me know in the comments below. So there we go, remember to like the video, subscribe if you're new here, and I'll be back hopefully tomorrow night where I'll be having a preview of Smile. Goodbye.